Welcome back to Masonry Studio. I'm David Abrams, founder and CEO of Masonry. Every single day since I started in this industry, I've been reading one publication, The Real Deal. Today I get to sit next to a friend, Keith Larsen, who is a senior reporter for The Real Deal. You have fed me so much information over the years, and first I want to say thank you, and want to take a little time to flip the lens, and instead of you asking all the questions, I'm going to start asking all the questions.
Awesome. Yeah, it feels weird to be on the other side here, but I'm looking forward to it.
We're sitting in my friend Ahia Damit's production studio right now called The Cave in Hackensack, New Jersey, a 5-minute drive from the elementary school that I was in from 6th through 8th, bullied by faculty and the students for the first year of me being there, faculty for the entire time I was there. It was not fun. I want to know, how was growing up in North Carolina?
I can't say it was a bad experience. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and in high school I started working for the newspaper, and I also developed an interest in finance. I was the head of the stock market club called the Bulls and Bears Club.
Nice.
And pretty proud of the name at the time. Yeah, and I wanted to be a sports writer. Like I wrote the sports column, and I just loved writing about sports. Like I loved the great sports authors like Frank DeFord. He's one of my favorites. He's probably still my favorite. And then, but overall, yeah, Charlotte's a very nice place to be. But I think like most people who end up in New York, you want something a bit more exciting. You know, you want more action, something more interesting type of people. So yeah, Charlotte overall was pretty good.
So how did you go from getting a bachelor's and master's there to writing for The Real Deal in South Florida?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting trajectory. I majored in finance actually in North Carolina, and I went to school in Wilmington, which is on the beach, and I just kind of realized one day I was like, I do not want to be like doing these accounting ledgers or looking at corporate like balance sheets all day. I don't want to do this. I got to figure out something I like to do. Much to maybe my parents' dismay, I picked journalism because I knew I liked it. I liked journalism. It's fun, it's interesting, it's always new. You're talking to cool people, you're talking to interesting people. It was stimulating to me. So I started off kind of at the bottom. I did unpaid internships, started off an unpaid internship at a local beach paper covering community news. Then next year I wrote for a local business publication, and there I kind of got into business journalism. And then I got really lucky that one of the top investigative financial journalists, his name was Roddy Boyd, he's a great mentor of mine. He got me a job, or an internship, and I kind of met him through chance, but he was living in Wilmington, and he's like a real legend. Like he broke stories on Valiant Pharmaceuticals and like some of these huge, was breaking stuff on Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns and all that back in the day. And yeah, I got an internship with him, and that kind of, after that, I wrote some big stories. Notably funny now, my first story was about a person named Michael Saylor, he's been in the news recently, his company MicroStrategy, who bet all their money on Bitcoin. And so I wrote about some of his kind of lucrative perks that he was getting at the time, including he had like a $1 million personal security allowance, which is really insane for a business intelligence company to have that. And he was getting like his commute paid for. Anyways, fast forward now, he's getting in trouble. He's in some trouble by the Washington, D.C. DA. He was looking after him for some tax fraud issues, allegedly. But then another interesting story, we ended up getting sued for big fight. Anyways, ended up Carolina, UNC Chapel Hill, studied journalism there, in the business journalism program. That was awesome. Interned at the Charlotte Observer, back of my home paper, and then got recruited to work for the South Florida Business Journal in Miami, and that was my first job there. So that's how I ended up there.
So I'd imagine you were saying your parents weren't super pleased with you going into journalism, and I get years of internship. That's not easy to see, but has their opinion changed now that you're doing this as a real profession?
Yeah, I mean, I think back, it's interesting seeing kind of my trajectory and looking at the industry as a whole. And I think one of the big issues is in the journalism industry is that there's so much, they don't want to pay for people to really develop, so they just take people from the top schools. And I'm talking about this is kind of an industry-wide problem. They look at places like Columbia and stuff like that. And so, I really kind of like hustled to kind of just get my foot in the door. And yeah, I guess now that I've finally kind of gotten to a place where I have some job security, it feels pretty good. I think my parents are a bit happier. But yeah, they're supportive, and it's an awesome thing to be doing.
So what took you from the Sunshine to the Empire State?
There was a multitude of factors. For one, my girlfriend lives in New York, so that was a factor. But also just New York is really where I wanted. New York is where I wanted to be from the very beginning. I think it's the most exciting place, the most interesting place to be a reporter, and really as someone, just kind of a young person, it's just a really exciting place to be. And now I was very fortunate to work at a company where I could just transfer, after 2 years of living in Miami to New York. So it's been good.
I read the Wall Street Journal every day. I love it. You and I were joking about an article that came out recently that was a head scratcher. It could have been written 3 years ago. How do you make sure that what you're writing is relevant?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's tough to kind of stay ahead of the trend sometime. I think the best way to do it is just talk to a lot of people. And I think that's probably the best way, is just talk to a lot of variety of people. So, I talk to you, I talk to people of kind of all different places, and I think that's been the most helpful. And just say, like my last question is always like, what are you interested in, or like what else is going on? Well, tell me something that's going on, and then generally, kind of from that question, I'm able to get something. And then I guess it's just, you just kind of pick things up by, reading things, checking property records every day. You just kind of see things, and after a couple of years of doing it, you kind of notice trends, I think, more easily. But I definitely think talking to people is the best way, and it's probably something I could be better at sometimes, because I rely a lot on documents. But I think talking to people is the best way.
So you rely on documents. We were talking about this recently, where you can read about a lawsuit and write about a lawsuit, and you're not getting a, hey, thanks for writing about me. You're actually getting a little verbal abuse. And I know on the broker side, we are often used as a scapegoat, and it's part of the job. Do you see a lot of that? Are you getting those calls at night?
Yeah, I think a lot of journalists are getting pretty angry calls. Some are worse than others, some you can kind of deal with. It's just, I try to just listen to what they have to say. And if someone is saying, this is completely bullshit, like you're full of shit. My response is always, well, explain to me what your side is. Like I want to listen, explain to me what's going on. Just tell me why this isn't bullshit. And I just try my best to listen to what people have to say. And I think I've gotten to a point now where it's like, you can only do the best you can do. You can fact check as much as you want, and you can do as much due diligence as you want, but people are still going to be upset. And as long as kind of the facts speak for themselves, then that's not really my problem. Like that's on them if they're upset. I'm just the one writing about this. I'm not the one who's suing them. I'm not the one who's gotten themselves into this. And I mean, the best thing that I can do is just to be fair. I mean, that's always been my principle throughout this. It's just to think about yourself, if you were in their shoes, how would you want to be treated? You know, I'd want someone to call me. I'd want them to give me a shot to explain. I wouldn't want any surprises. And I think that's really been one of my guiding principles.
I think that's really cool that you call them. You give them that opportunity to actually have a conversation.
Yeah, I think that's it's pretty standard practice, but I think I just kind of put myself in the mindset of like, look, I mean, if I was on the other end of this and someone was writing an article about me, how would I feel? You know, and just try to approach it from that perspective, from that lens.
What would you say you do that is not common practice?
I've always tried to look at things and look at stories that other people aren't looking at. That's always been one of my focuses, because if you're just covering the same story everyone else is, you're probably not going to get very far. And especially kind of as a niche publication, I always try to think of it like, okay, what is the exact real estate angle? What is the audience for? What is the story for our audience? Not, we're not writing for a political audience. So what's our story? And what's something that maybe is very interesting and no one else is gonna have? And that's really, kind of how I approached my job.
And so knowing your audience, one of I would say the videos I put out that are super helpful, a broker, how to use a CAD plan. I don't want to guess the percentage of brokers that don't know how to use a CAD plan. So I put out a quick video, doesn't get hits. I put out something that shows vulnerability, and all of a sudden people are like, wow, thanks so much, click link, let's share that. Yeah. What hits on your end? What really gets people to respond to you? Yeah,
I think, that's a good question, and to kind of touch on that point, I think what covering real estate for a lot of people does not sound very exciting. It's writing about buildings, but then people don't care about buildings, they care about people. Like, they want to know these people, and the people who develop real estate and these builders and landlords are really interesting people. You have some real cowboys and some really, you have some hucksters and you have some charlatans, but you have some really entrepreneurial type of people that come from interesting communities and had an interesting upbringing. So I think that the stories that resonate are the ones about people, and I recently, a couple months ago, did a story about Ruby Sharon, from Camden, one of the largest landlords in the country, in New York. But not much has been written about him. He's never spoken to the press. But I think people are interested because they want to know who he is. Who is this guy? What is he like? What does he spend his time doing? What are his values? And I think that's what resonates with people the most. And I think it always will, beyond any sort of information or any sort of kind of, this person buys this, and this building got sold, and this hedge fund bought this. End of the day, people only care about that so much.
Right. And stats, we were talking before about, there are people that really go out there and study the stats and they write on the stats, but to you that's dry, right? Anybody could look in public data about a building sale, but you're digging into personality.
People definitely need data, and that is a huge portion of what we do. But like you said, you can go to CBRE, you can go to Colliers, you can get that. Data is just data. Data is not a story. You need something. My job is to do more than just provide data. It's to tell stories and to provide, more information analysis on what that data really means.
Tell me, what is a challenge day to day in writing for you today?
I'm probably not the best at managing my time. You got to think about kind of your long-term stuff and the daily stuff, and the stuff that maybe it's interesting to you but not to the readers, and then to kind of also to make sure that, again, how is this? Why should the reader care about this story? Or why should the readers care about this? And then separately, it can be very hard to get in touch with a lot of these people, and to get some of this information, I think. you know, a lot of people don't like to speak to the press, and a lot of people don't like this information most people don't like this information out there, and it's my job to find it. So that's always a battle, always a struggle.
You mentioned long-term in that. Think 5 years out. How do you see journalism evolving over the next 5 years?
Well, I do think there'll be a lot more of this. There's going to be way more. I mean, video is really the future. There's going to be a lot. You have to be integrated with video, I think. And then, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know. I mean, a lot of the trajectory of journalism isn't so great. I mean, there's a lot of clickbait garbage out there, and you know, a lot of news publications aren't paying employees, you know, their journalists well, so they don't get, you know, good reporters. I mean, luckily I work for a place that really encourages, I think, more in-depth reporting, and, you know, really encourages to go deeper. But you know, that's a good question. I don't know. You know, it's also interesting just where people are getting their news from. Increasingly, I think fewer people are going to you know, local newspapers, so they're kind of looking at other places to get their news.
What is a senior reporter's opinion on using a PR agency?
I don't really have an opinion. I mean, I guess however you think you need to get your message across. I don't know. We work well with certain PR agencies. I don't know if I really have an opinion on that, other than my one recommendation would be, like, if you just talk to us. You know, there's so many people that will call me after the fact and be like, you know, you worthless scum or something, and it's like, I called you. You should have talked to me. You know, that's like my main piece of advice. You can only help yourself by talking most of the time. I mean, unless you're lying, then that's, you know, don't lie. Number one, don't lie. Number two, just talk to the person, to the journalist. And I think that's the best sort of media. The only media advice I can really give is just be honest, talk to the person, develop a relationship, be helpful, you know, provide them with some stuff, some tips and interesting stuff. Don't just talk about yourself, maybe. But yeah, I have no qualms with PR people, or rarely, I guess.
Who's someone that you want to interview, but fear the rejection of asking them?
Actually, I don't know if I'm really afraid of getting rejected by people. I send out requests all the time and they never get answered, so whatever, you know. Like, I don't really, that doesn't bother me. But the question of who to interview, that, I don't know, honestly, it'd probably be someone not in real estate. Like, it would, I don't know.
Just an example.
I don't know. I mean, there's like historical figures that I can think of. You know, it would have been pretty cool to interview Muhammad Ali or someone like that. But I have to think more about that. I don't know if there's anyone I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. Like, sometimes, like, the interviews that you don't expect anything are the most interesting. You know, you interview this random guy and it's the most interesting story, you know, and so I really don't know. And you know, sometimes you interview these people that are really big, and then it's like, well, you already know what they're gonna, I mean, not all the time, but like, they've given so many interviews, stuff is prepackaged. So I would kind of have to think about that more. But sometimes it's better to just, sometimes my best interviews are with people I just totally did not expect anything from.
Right. I guess what I was getting at is more in today's landscape, and you're right, it doesn't have to be in real estate. Somebody that you really want to interview.
Man, I really, I don't know. I wish I could. I wish I had like a better
childhood
answer.
Hero.
Yeah, but they'd probably like be like not cool or something. You know, it's just like a total letdown. You know, like I don't know. I feel like it would be. I really don't know. That's a good question. I really don't know.
You and I spent quality time this past March at the Real Deal Future Cities event in the Bahamas. You said something that stuck with me, and I want to ask about that. This idea that there's a trend amongst reporters to have, I don't want to use the word depression, but a darker side. What were you talking about on that?
I think maybe I was talking about just kind of, I might have been talking about, at the beginning of my career, I saw kind of a trajectory of older journalists becoming really depressed, honestly, because the situation in the newspaper business was pretty bleak. I mean, just cuts after cuts, layoffs after layoffs, a race to go after stuff where you'll get clicks. I mean, you just see it on newspapers. I mean, look at the size of the newspaper staff. It went from like hundreds of people to a fraction. And I think maybe what I was talking about is like that trajectory seemed pretty bleak. But I don't know, I feel like I've kind of carved out my own trajectory here. And, you know, not to plug my own company or something, but I mean, that's what I like about working with The Real Deal. Like, it's just not that vibe. Like, I've been in that situation before where layoffs are happening, people are depressed. And so it's good to work for a company that's like hiring. And I think that's kind of maybe that's where I was going. And yeah, I don't want to get stuck in that. If I end up working for a company like that, then I'll quit and do something else because it can be miserable.
So without the company in the picture, meaning hopefully The Real Deal continues on this path, what are you doing to keep your trajectory staying positive?
Well, I mean, I think it's like to constantly look for new stories and bigger stories. You know, I see, I mean, that's what I love about doing this. It's like it's really, whatever you want to do, you can kind of do it. So just constantly finding more interesting people to write about, more interesting stories. I mean, that's my trajectory. It's just tell really cool stories in different ways and about different people and learn different things. I mean, that's the best part about this job, and that's just really what I hope to keep doing, and then kind of get better at my skills as I go along. And yeah, I mean, but that's really my, if I can keep doing this, and that's great for me, honestly. Like, I really enjoy it, and it is a really fun job. And especially when you have like a worse job, like it's just great, you know, like every day it's something new, it's exciting, I get to talk to cool people. I don't know what to say. And being in New York, I mean, there's no better place to be a reporter than New York. It's the most fascinating city. And I've gotten to meet the most fascinating people.
To give the viewers, your readers, a little more insight into Keith, what is a staycation for you?
Oh, man. You know, I write a lot of cool stuff, and I you know, have written some kind of, you know, articles about money laundering and fraud and all this, but my personal life is really boring, and I honestly just like, I don't know, just like working out and going for runs in Brooklyn or something. I mean, I really, my personal life is just super dull. I don't know what to say. I like to just
awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I like to just keep healthy and read and just, you know, hang out in New York. I don't know.
Honestly, I asked the question, but like Dina and I just went on a trip to LA, and I say trip very strategically because it was 8 days with our children, 1.5, 3.5 in LA is not vacation.
Right.
But it was the best eye opener for her when we came back to just say, I just want 48 hours with you, meaning me, sitting in a hotel doing nothing. Like we're fine with just doing nothing.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
I wish I had like something really cool I did. I was like thinking about that, you know, I was like, man, I wish I did. I don't know, something really cool, like free, like solo, like rock climbing or something, but I don't do anything like that, so yeah.
We were talking for a few minutes before the cameras turned on, and you said something really interesting about a trend in New York. Things are moving south. What's your outlook on the city?
You know, there's been a lot of negative, I guess negative press, kind of negative talk about New York City, especially from kind of a lot of Floridians or you know, paint New York in such a grim way. But things are not that bad in New York, I think. Especially when you look at, you know, the demand for apartments. I mean, so many people want to live here. I mean, rent is that record keeps going up. So the multifamily market is doing great. I mean, obviously the big question is office. And I mean, that's a problem going on everywhere. But I think that the thing is, a lot of people want to be in New York. I mean, if you look at Brooklyn, things never really changed in the pandemic that much. You know, it didn't have that serious drop that people were projecting. It's a much different situation, I think, from San Francisco and Silicon Valley, where you have more tech workers. I think that this whole migration thing is very interesting, and obviously you did it, but as you can contest, it's not that easy to do, to you know, often leave your family, kids in school. So I don't know if the migration out of New York is going to happen like some projected. I think things are going pretty well and are on an upward trajectory overall, you know, all things considered.
I appreciate your answer. I was actually talking about the trend that you were saying about people moving
within
south
New York.
within New York to
okay.
East Village.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine.
No, that's interesting too. I mean, people are moving. It does seem like more people are moving downtown, just in terms of like where kind of the young people want to be is Lower East Side, you know, East Village, West Village, and you know, they don't want to be in the Upper West Side, Upper East Side. But I think kind of overall, I mean, Manhattan is just so tiny. Like everywhere, there's only so much inventory. You know, people are going to, I just think that things are going to be okay. Again, with the exception of maybe some office, and dated office in particular in places like Midtown. But yeah, it is kind of an interesting trajectory of people seeming to kind of, younger people in particular, kind of wanting to be more downtown. You know,
writing is a skill set. Is there a topic that you would be writing about if you were not working for The Real Deal outside of real estate?
Yeah, maybe either music or sports. I'm just kind of fascinated with you know, writing about different athletes. And then I have no interest in writing about politics at all. Like that does not interest me. I do not want to be in the Beltway game, you know, inside the Beltway and do all that stuff. I have zero interest in that. It would probably be something totally unrelated to what I'm doing now, to be honest.
It's fair. Did you play sports when you were growing up?
Not really. I watched a lot of sports. I wrote about sports. I played tennis, but I wasn't very good. Played basketball, wasn't very good. Super lanky kid.
You're tall, you got height.
Yeah, but I was also 70 pounds, like last at this height. So I like wasn't, I wasn't, but I really wanted to be like a sports writer back as a kid. But you know what, real estate is like it's a really fun beat to write about. I mean, you think about the most important people. Our last president was in real estate. His son-in-law, the Kushners, they're in real estate. We write about these people every day. The personalities are crazy. It's just kind of, and you really get to learn about different communities. You know, you get to learn about, like a lot of my writing in Brooklyn is about, you know, various different communities, and you learn about them, and that's been really, really interesting.
Writing is an art. You're an artist. How do you go about, you're trying to get a story and the person's just not giving it to you? How do you dig deeper?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing is I just take a serious approach to it, and you know, tell them this is what I'm doing and this is what I have, and you know, tell me what I should, tell me if there's something wrong here, but I got to go to print with this. You know, I think that I just don't let people really play games, because that's what a lot of people do, is they'll spin you and they tell you, oh, well, I'll tell you this in 2 weeks, just wait 2 weeks. That never happens. 2 weeks never happens. You know, it never happens in my whole time. I've heard that. It just never, it just like never happened. So just, I think that when you said turn it up a notch, I mean, I think the thing is to just say, you know, to be serious and to be upfront with someone. And to let you know, hey, like, I'm not gonna back down. You know, this is my job. This is what I'm doing. Like, you can't intimidate me. And if you try to intimidate me, you know, that's not gonna happen, you know. And unfortunately that happens, a lot of people try to do that and try to scare you. And that's the other thing too, it's like, someone described to me, my former mentor, Roddy, described being, especially when you're doing an investigation and being a reporter, it's like, sometimes you're at war and you're the only person, you're just fighting and everyone else is against you. And I think that was a bit extreme. He was kind of an extreme guy. But it's kind of true. Like, these firms are so powerful and they have so much money and they hire multiple PR people and lawyers, and you know, you're just kind of, I'm just a guy, you know, like, I'm just a guy, you know, a journalist. Like, I didn't go to, you know, I don't have a law degree or something like that. So it's kind of, it can be intimidating, you know, honestly, like, and it can kind of rattle you. And I mean, I've been lucky I haven't been personally threatened, but you know, I know people who have, and it's really scary. You know, it's really terrifying. And so, I guess, yeah, it's just to let people know, you know, you can't mess with me. Like, you know, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, or I'm gonna write what I'm gonna write. This is my job, and I'll be as fair as possible, but I'm not gonna let you bully me.
And I would imagine that your environment is great at The Real Deal, but there are environments where the reporter's not only getting it from the outside, but they're getting it from the inside. Write it, right? And you end up putting out content that may be rushed or.
Yeah, I'm sure that happens. I mean, luckily I don't think I've been in the case where I've written something and felt uncomfortable about it. You know, at the end of the day, it's your byline, your name's on it. Yeah. Like, no one's gonna know the editor, you know. So, but yeah, you know, it's like something I think about all the time. I don't want to be wrong, and I want to make sure that whatever I write doesn't make this person, not that it doesn't make them look bad, because that's their own, if they made themselves look bad, then that's their own fault. But like, I don't want to write anything that's misleading or untrue, and you know, as much shit as journalists get, I think that, you know, a lot of us are just painlessly fact-checking things, and you know, they really think about this stuff, you know, and it's not just gotcha and clickbait. I mean, I know that exists, but it's, I really think about, you know, the stuff that I'm putting out, and I take it very seriously.
I've pitched a building for 3 years before getting it, and then took years of leasing it. What's the longest amount of time you've ever worked on an article?
Oh, that's a good question. There are things that I've had on the back burner for a while, maybe close to a year. But that may be me, you know, like, it's probably me, I should have been better organized. But that's also me, because I really like to know something, you know, I really want to know something before I write it. And I really want to be sure. And, you know, and I've also seen sometimes people will write stuff and it doesn't quite have the impact because they got it out too quickly. You know, like if they looked in a little bit deeper, maybe there could have been more impact. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, because it's like, there are things that I've been looking at forever, you know, but who knows if it'll ever get published, you know? It's a lot on me and time management.
Right.
and trying to have a life outside of this too. You know, I think that, you know, the really good stuff, it's stuff that, you know, you really think about, and it's something you're hearing about for a while, and you're asking around, and you're asking different people. Ask 50 people, and then it kind of comes together. You know, that's just been my experience. You're never gonna get like a home, you know, some Watergate tip like from just like by some random call you make one time.
You never know.
It's just, I mean, I guess it does. I guess it happens, but I mean, I think it's from like relationships, and people really have to trust you, and that's another part of it, is just building that trust that people, you know, you're not going to screw them. Like, I'm not out to get anyone. I don't know anyone. People are always like, you're out to get me, and I'm like, I don't know you. I've never met you in my life. Why would I be out to get you? I don't know you, you know, and so it's just kind of creating that sense of trust, and, you know, letting them know, you know, I'm serious about this. I want to make sure we get this right, and then that's all, you know, that's all you can really do.
Have you ever had an interview that someone just cut off in the middle and said, we're done?
I've had some people really scream at me, and like call me at all hours of the night accusing me of stuff. People lying to me, but I'm trying to think. I don't think so. That's generally like I've never really seen that, you know, like you see it on TV, but it's a terrible approach from both sides. Like, well, you know, like especially when it's very different from TV than when you're writing. Because if you're, like, that would be so awkward. It makes for good theatrics, but I don't know if that's really a great way to get your message across. You know, if you're on the other side, like, wouldn't you want to be trying to talk as much as you can? So, you know, I can't say that's ever happened, but I definitely have people that don't want to talk to me. So, and people have been mad, but, you know, whenever life goes on, you know, like, you know, that's the thing. It just, you know, there'll be another article, like, life will go on, you know, what can you do?
I'm not going to scream at you. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'll say that we're done.
All right, appreciate it, David. Great speaking with you. Thank you for doing this. Yeah, this is awesome.
Keep putting in all that effort. I know that you reach this point where you just think that it's too much time being spent on it, but I really read your articles, and you're the first reporter I've ever reached out to. I hope it comes across as the people that are reading what you're putting out actually appreciate it.
No,
so
that really means a lot.
I
really appreciate that. Yeah. All right, thanks, man. How'd that go?